What's up, NBA fan? What's up, all sports fans? This your boy JB, hosted the Behind the Bench podcast network and channel, giving a shout out to the rest of the crew. If everyone who's tuning in, thank you for supporting Behind the Bench. Subscribe to the channel. Help make this show the best that it can be. And the other members of the crew, hopes for the same. Shy, Kelvin, Jermaine, KB Film Room, and Big Dog Talk Sports. That's right. That's right. You know, we're in the heart of the NBA playoffs now. I really don't have any complaints about what we have witnessed in these playoffs. I believe the officiating, for the most part, has been good. It's been good. The game has been determined by the players on the court. I love the fact that we're seeing fresh faces get the spotlight. You know, it may be a situation where it's some basketball fans that may feel hesitant to embrace what's about to transpire, but that's a good thing, man. The NBA has a lot of promise. You know, I've never been one to be negative about the league. My whole thing is been what this super team era has brought forth over these past 15 years. I don't think it's brought anything good to the table. And the main thing that it did, what made this league great as a whole, is that it devalued competition. It eliminated competition when it came to the premier superstars of this league going against each other. Instead, they started joining forces. And that's a major turnoff. You know, when you do that, we're robbed of an opportunity to see who's who. That's not what's being done. That's not what's taking place in these playoffs. We're going to get to see who's who. And meaning, this is what I mean. You may pick a team to win a series, right? And let's say they lose to someone who's better. And you feel disappointed and you won't like it, but you know where you stand. You know where the team stands. See, in this playoff, we get to see why Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was selected as this year's league MVP. Because think about it, he had to face the reigning MVP in Nikola Jokic in the playoffs. That's an awesome thing, man. That's an awesome thing. Therefore, when OKC won the series versus Denver, there was no, oh man, this and that. If this happened, if that had happened. No, everybody was on the court. That's what it's about. So I really have no qualms. They say the ratings are down. Me personally, I don't necessarily believe that. But let's say if that was the case, well, see, when the real competition starts to resurface again, then we get to find out who truly loves the NBA. So let's say if the ratings do take a hit initially, if it's true, then it's a blessing in disguise. See, I always try to look at the positive of things. And it gets me to the Los Angeles Lakers, man, and what they really need to do moving forward. Over the past week or so, it's the same old talking points. We need this, we need that. Well, the Lakers need to get this done. They need to make this move. They need to make this trade. They need to, waive this player, But to accomplish these so-called annual quests to win a championship, they have to sacrifice their own to do it. Now all of a sudden that Luka Doncic is on the team after being extricated from his own franchise. In layman's terms, he was snatched from his own team. to keep this franchise from collapsing because of the hurricane. And it's not a guarantee it's gonna work. That's the thing. It's a lot of variables that play. We got to start reading this fine print, because anytime you have to continuously sacrifice your own to keep your team going, to make you feel like that you're still in the mix, you're losing. You're losing. Oh, what I'm trying to say is this is a list of all the players that the Lakers have drafted since 2014 that have been extricated or casted away since this whole quote unquote venture began. I call it. It felt like a home invasion. That's what this whole thing feel like. Julius Randle, Larry Nance Jr., Jordan Clarkson, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma, Josh Hart, Thomas Bryant, Alex Caruso, Mo Wagner, Svi Mikhailiuk. Like the original young core was wiped out. They were wiped out. Okay. Then you had the Scottie Pippen Jr. Oh, Taylor Horton Tucker. Think about this. He was so devalued. He went from a highly touted prospect to being so devalued, he was traded to bring in a 36-year-old Patrick Beverley who lasted on this team for like half a season before he was traded. It's total insanity what's been going on with this franchise. Now, I know people, you got fans out there, or maybe fans of the Lakers, who they'll bring up what the other team doing, what the Clippers are doing, what they gave up, trading away Shea to bring in Paul George, gave up all kind of draft picks, or what the Phoenix Suns did, or what Brooklyn did, or what Philadelphia is doing to try to win right now. But the thing is, I'm a fan of the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, don't get me wrong, man. I love what these teams are doing. I love what the remaining teams in the playoffs. I really hold their efforts in great respect because they're showing you don't have to sacrifice your franchise and mortgage it off to try to win. You got a team like the Knicks, man, who have been, they're a legitimate contender in their conference now, man. They've advanced to the conference finals. Now, whether they win it or not, that's one thing, but they can say, you know what, this year we won the top 4 teams in the league and try to build off of that. Indiana Pacers, they one game away from going to the finals, man. This will be their second finals appearance, first finals appearance since the year 2000. Then you got the Minnesota Timberwolves. They're down in the series versus OKC, but they advanced to the conference finals for the second consecutive year. First time in franchise history they've done that. And then you got the Oklahoma City Thunder, man, who was down 4 years ago. They was winning 24 games, like 2 years straight. And then they started to put it together, man, and boom, here they are. So kudos to what they're doing. But when you see now all of a sudden Austin Reeves is expendable because Luka Doncic is on the team. Because they saying, well, what Austin Reeves is asked to do, Luka Doncic does it better. So sacrifice him to try to build a team around Luka. See, what I'm trying to say is a championship team, when you look at all championship teams, man, yes, they may make a trade, but more often than not, when they make those trades, it's a trade that is a final piece to the puzzle where you're not sacrificing the foundation. You're not sacrificing the core players who got you to that point where you know you're one piece away. That's not what this has been. Everybody got either cut, waived, traded off. On average, after completing like 2 years in of basketball into their NBA career, it's insanity. So more than likely, and there's more talks of trading Dalton Knecht this offseason. Here go a young man. This is May. Back in the NBA draft is held in June. Back in June, late June, when the Lakers drafted him, because they was fortunate to have a draft pick to select someone anyway, because the New Orleans Pelicans deferred last year's pick in 2024 to the Lakers in an Anthony Davis trade. So yet again, from that trade, a team defers a pick to you and uses it to draft a player who said to be the steal of the draft. And it was all this ranting and raving and celebrating because we've had very minimal opportunity to draft someone anyway. Now remember, I forgot about Max Christie too. Add him to that list too. Scottie Pippen Jr. Along with like the Taylor Horn Tuckers of the world. So Max Christie, they was able to draft him in the second round because they bought a second round pick from the Orlando Magic. They were so devoid of draft capital, they had to wait till this Anthony Davis trade concludes from a deferred pick. Meaning, if the Pelicans had not deferred that pick, they wouldn't be able to draft Dalton Knecht. And now, 6 months to his career, he was used as a pawn in the game, just like the original wave of the young core movement. And he was one of the top candidates for Rookie of the Year his first 3 months into the season. And he was devalued just like that. His playing time was reduced. You forgot that he was part of the team. So what I'm trying to say is, man, if you trade away Austin Reeves, or if he leaves, and if you trade Dalton Knecht, you have no drafted players on this team. The only player who you got on the team that you quote unquote drafted is that man's son who has no business in the NBA. None. That's how backwards this situation is. And you capitulate to it, and I'm going to keep on saying this. You capitulate to a basketball player who has 6 championship losses on his ledger. He has a losing percentage in championship play in the National Basketball Association. And that's who they capitulated. That's who they turned their franchise over to. That's who they mortgaged their future off for. That's who they sacrificed their young core for. Can you imagine where we'd be if we stuck to the plan and not bring that dude to the team? And I know his fans going to sit there and try to justify it and say, oh, man, I wasn't doing nothing before we got here. But like I say, number one, every team goes through a down period. Every team professional sports has a down period. Do you realize the San Francisco 49ers, the Joe Montana-led 49ers, man, they was the team in the 80s, and it kind of carried over to the 90s. But eventually they had a down period. The Patriots going through a down period right now. They was on top of the NFL for 20 years. Right? The New York Yankees haven't won a World Series since 2009. They went to the World Series last year, but they haven't won one since 2009. And prior to 2009, during the Reggie Jackson years, Mr. October, when they went back-to-back World Championships in 1977 and 1978, they went 18 full seasons before they won their next World Series during the beginning of the Derek Jeter era. 18 years, but they were still the Yankees. They didn't capitulate. They didn't hand their franchise over to one player. So what I'm trying to say is, and then number two, they losing with this guy on the team. You giving him everything imaginable and then some. You cater to his every whim and you losing. You can't even get out the first round. So that lets me know when I look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, and it's going to get to what the Lakers need to do. When I look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, they're going to become the model franchise of the league. Now, when I mean by model franchise, I'm talking about on a year-to-year basis, man. They're going to run their organization top notch. There's no signs that this is a fluke what they're doing. They have so many draft picks in their stash that they can leverage any move they want. They can leverage any move they want to where they will never get fleeced. They don't have to take no crap off nobody on the team. No drama. And none of these talking heads will try to dictate what they can do. Do you notice? Do you notice all this year? These talking heads on these sports shows, they not pushing for OKC to make certain moves per se. The only idea that came up recently was Kevin Durant going back to OKC. And like I said, I've been a tremendous fan of Kevin Durant all the way back to his college year. Well, he played 1 year of college, University of Texas. I've always been a fan of Kevin Durant, but he eventually did leave OKC, but he played for the team for 9-10 years before he left to go to Golden State. But they built this team up without him. So I think it would be an insult to bring a player on board and try to position him to be the top player when he didn't go through that growth period year by year by year, like a Lou Dort on the team. Lou Dort was on the team when they was at the bottom. So when you see a team, benefit from just hanging in there and representing the team when you're down, it's good to see a player like that reap the benefits of that. Or Isaiah Stewart in Detroit, you know what I'm saying, who went to the playoffs for the first time in a number of years. Who the first time winning a playoff game since like 2008. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to say is, the Lakers, this is just me talking. It's just me talking. I know they're not going to do it because during a no-win situation, because number one, as long as the Hurricane on the team, his fans going to always put pressure on the front office to try to turn water into wine every year. But fans of the franchise putting pressure on the front office too. There's only so many moves that they can make. Rob Pelinka made mention that not leading into this season, but leading into the previous year. Like, look, I can't keep on giving these draft picks away. But because of constant pressure, he tried to make a move to bring in a center. But you didn't have to do that if you would not have traded Zubats away to create cap space to try to accelerate the acquisition of Anthony Davis, to try to get that third superstar. See, it's a whole bunch of stuff that went down with this franchise over the past 7 years that really hasn't been highlighted and discussed the way it should. So the front office and the ownership is like, damn if you do, damn if you don't. And before all this started, I remember Jeannie Buss. I remember she gave an interview and she was saying, how it's going to become more difficult to make these blockbuster moves. That you're gonna have to really develop your own talent. She said that like a year before they brought this dude to the team. She said that. But once you bring him to the team, you can forget it. You're not gonna be able to you're not gonna be able to operate your team on a normal capacity. No, it's full steam ahead. No holds barred. Throw all caution to the wind. You cast aside logic. And that's why they're in the position they're in right now. We need to get a center. We need to get a big man. Like this franchise never had a center before. Like it's almost like the way we existing right now, it's not even an expansion team. Even an expansion team starting off has a vision of kind of how they want to build a franchise up starting off. This right here, man, it's literally like a dog chasing his own tail and not being able to catch up to it. So you trade Anthony Davis for Luka Doncic. Then the talking heads try to convince you that the Lakers can play defense at the same level without AD that they was with AD. Then when it got real, when it was time to match up in the playoffs, you crashed. So what I'm saying is this, man, what the Lakers really need to do in the grand scheme of things is throw in the towel, dog, and get control of the franchise back. Because when you lose in the first round 2 years straight, that means you're not even really realistically, you're supposed to be in all-time win-now mode, but you're losing. That means you're not even close, dog. See, going into the 23-24 season when they signed Cam Reddish, who was already a journeyman, he wasn't even 25 years old. He had, Lakers are like his fourth team. I think he started off in Atlanta, then the Knicks, then the Blazers, and then he signed a 2-year deal with the Lakers. They waived him mid-season. They waived him, cut him. Then you signed Jackson Hayes. They tried to convince you that Jackson Hayes is a legitimate starting center. Well, when you average less than 2 points a game in the postseason, you're not even a backup. I mean, how can I say this? Let me correct it. Let me correct that. He's not a starting center, and the Lakers don't have a backup. So they talking about getting a center. They don't even have a legitimate backup to the guy who they trying to push to be the starter. That's how much, I don't want to call it ineptitude. I don't want to call it that. That's how much you've been gutted out. To where when you had Zubac and Thomas Bryant, you had a legitimate future starting center and potentially one of the best backup centers in basketball. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is, man, I've been trying to relay this message for the past 5 years. The gig has been up since the bubble. See, that bubble chip, man, it threw everything off whack. It distorted perception because they took the shortcut and threw all the chips in the middle of the table to produce that 1 year. That's not how a real championship team or championship run is built. That was not a built team. That was not a built team. You had a lot of veterans willing to take, the vet minimum. It's like the Miami Heat all over again. Because I came across a clip of on ESPN right after they announced they signed the Hurricane, and they was trying to push for a trade to get Kawhi Leonard and recruit Paul George to sign as a free agent. And you know how they do that? They'll show like they look like the little clipboard where they show players they can involve in a trade over to another team, and then you drag the one player's name over to the side of the Lakers as a newly acquired player. And they matched up all the scenarios. And they said, you bring LeBron, you trade for Kawhi Leonard, and you sign Paul George. And they showed you what their price tag would be to have all three players, how much of the salary cap they would take to acquire those three players, and how much would be left to fill out the rest of the roster. So by the time they would have got Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, and after signing the Hurricane, you probably would have had less than, I think they said something like $8 million to fill out the rest of the roster. And then you sign low-tier players to fill the roster out. That's the Miami Heat all over again. It's the Miami Heat all over again. Because that's how they built their super team Miami. And what's crazy is they had to take pay cuts to even make that happen. See, it's really an anomaly, and it's a byproduct of manipulating the system to produce those type of teams. But that formula ain't working, and especially in the Western Conference, dog. And now you got OKC standing in your way for God knows how long. Houston is there, Minnesota. Like I said, man, they're a fixture now. Houston, San Antonio will be better. Denver still has Jokic. Portland has improved. Dallas, oh my God. So what I'm saying is, man, instead of playing this charade, somebody has to come in and be real, dog. And I know it's gonna be tough. This is why they should have stuck with the original plan, dog. Because you would have went through the major obstacle of the player development by the year 20, by 2020, tell you the truth. So the year of the bubble realistically should have been a year where you really would have fulfilled the development phase of that young core to where they would have matured by then. Then you can start, whatever moves you need to make as a final piece of the puzzle, then you make it. And then boom, you take off. You ready for a whole decade. And we've been dealing with this mess, and you know exactly where you are. See, and I guarantee you, we wouldn't be getting dusted in the first round 2 years straight. So I would propose, realistically, that this franchise throwing the towel, like your boy in Rocky IV, when Apollo Creed was in the ring with Drago, and Drago was just, oh my God, you know what I'm saying? He opened up the can, and then Apollo's lifelong trainer, Duke, said, throw in the towel. Throw in the damn towel. Like he getting bludgeoned out there. Well, that's what's happening to us right now. Because as long as that dude is on the team, they're going to have to continue to make unnecessary moves. You cast out all the amazing young talent, but you got his son on the team. Because all this year has been for the Hurricane is one big flex move. That's all this has been. See, he not going to be, how can I put this? He's so driven to be viewed as the GOAT that he's willing to push this organization to the brink of utter collapse to try to stake that claim. Whereas you look at a player like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, when he got older, he said, you know what? Hey, I've had my run as the top dog. I can still be a major contributor to this team in a lesser role. I still have importance. I still have value. He was still the captain of the team. They called him Cap to the day he retired. He said, you know what? I'm going to turn over the reins to the Magic Johnsons and the Byron Scotts. I'll take on a role to where when my number is called, I'll try to deliver. Meaning, he was like the fourth scoring option on the team, and really probably the fifth scoring option because he was the oldest player on the team. But it didn't take away from who he was. He was still Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You see what I'm saying? That's not what this dude is, man. He don't roll like that. And what's crazy is he's nowhere near the greatest player of all time. That's what's tragic about this situation. And this is where the environment, all this denial about what's going on is being cultivated. Because for all practical purposes, they brought the wrong player to the team at the absolute wrong time. Because the only thing they got of it was 1 year. That was 5 years ago. That was 5 years ago. Not and to show you how the standard has been lowered. It's been lowered so bad. When the Lakers won the title in 1987, they beat the Boston Celtics in 6 games. That was the last time that the Lakers and Celtics faced each other in the 80s for the championship. During the championship celebration, in the heart of the championship celebration, head coach Pat Riley said, we had a tremendous year. I'm just paraphrasing. We had a tremendous year, no doubt about it. But next year, we're going to do it again. He had already forgot about them just winning. His mind was already, the motivation was, we're going to be the first team in 19 years to repeat as champions, dog. And they went through the fire, man. They won 62 games, man, but they struggled early on. And in the playoffs, they had to win 3 series in 7 games to repeat as champions. They win 7 games versus Utah in the second round, the Western Conference semifinals, and it was a tough series because Utah went up on us 2-1. And we won a tough game on the road in Utah where they was, oh my God, man, they was hell to deal with at home at the Salt Palace. That was the name of the arena. And we got that game 4, and then we won the last 2 home games. And then we won 7 games against Dallas, where each team won the home game. And then, of course, we beat the Detroit Pistons in 7 games, who actually was a deeper team than we were. That's not what this is. They brought someone to be the head coach with 0 coaching experience at this level. And it showed big time in that series versus Minnesota. It was so glaring that he didn't even want to ask questions about it because he know he should not be head coach. Not saying he couldn't be a head coach at some point, but he has no assistant coach experience. And he was just thrusting on this experience because the guy who pushed for it has no respect for the game. But they threw Darvin Ham under the bus. But his first year was more successful. And I'm not even saying Darvin Ham. The only reason they hired him is because they couldn't get an established head coach to take the job. So see, I'm not emotionally invested as to who the head coach is. Like when they hired Frank Vogel, I said he's not going to last no more than 3 years. He got canned in 3 years. Darvin Ham, I said he's not going to last no more than 2 years. He got canned in 2 years. And JJ Redick, I mean, you roll the dice. You roll the dice. Luke Walton was done. The day they announced they was bringing the dude to the team, I said, Luke Walton, he won't last more than 1 year. And it wasn't his fault. So what I'm saying is this, man. They got rid of 18 drafted players. You may well say darn near 20 drafted players. I mean, do anybody seriously think Oklahoma City's going to do that? Or any team that has a real future? We sitting here, man. The team is sitting there scratching their heads how to get a center on this team, dog. That's where we at, man. That's where we at. And see, and when you bring up Ivica Zubac, very few people want to hear it because he was deemed expendable in his process. See, but when you do that, especially prematurely, 5 years down the line, you be scratching your head saying we need a big man. And he's playing for the Clippers of all teams. He's playing for the Los Angeles Clippers when he should be a Laker. If Zubac was the starting center for the Minnesota Timberwolves right now, they'd be going to the finals, dog. I mean, they would be ahead in the series versus OKC. I just personally believe that. But at the end of the day, they need to throw in the towel, man. And people, somebody got to start being honest. But see, what's happening is, too, they're playing on the past glory of the Lakers. Whereas, they'll say championship or bust, we about championships. But what was not being presented to them is how the Lakers got to that point, how they became the standard. It's because they invested in their team. They didn't mortgage the future away. And they established a standard where it wasn't championship or bust. It's just they set the ultimate standard. But they worked hard to achieve that standard. They didn't take no shortcuts to achieve that standard. So even after Showtime ended, when Magic retired and Worthy retired and Kareem had retired and AC Green went to play elsewhere, Byron Scott went to play elsewhere, Michael Cooper retired. They didn't try to take no shortcuts in starting over. They started over through the draft. It's as simple as that. Because when you start over, that's how you have to do it. This dude, like I say, we went from having the youngest team in the league to the oldest team in the league in a year. So what do you think is going to happen? When you go from one side of the pendulum to the other side of the pendulum at a snap of a finger, you're going to struggle. There's going to be tremendous void. So within 2 years after the bubble, they crashed out, won 33 games. And you had 5 top 75 players on the team, but the problem was they was the oldest team in the league ever. That team in 21-22 by the Lakers was the oldest team in the history of professional basketball. You knew that team wasn't finna do nothing if you respect the history of the game. That's the key. If you respect the history of the game, therefore, you're going to develop logic and reason. And you'll be able to determine the outcome of the season when the outsiders, the talking heads, try to gas it up and try to polish the team up. Try to convince you that these low tier players that they resort to having to bring in is going to fill the void from which you let go. And it's impossible. And it's going to continue. If you get rid of Austin Reeves, who gave you 20 points a game this year, playing above his value, and Dalton Knecht, who was averaging 10 points a game as a rookie, and you let go of that to bring in a player who you feel got name reputation, you devalue your franchise even more. And you're not going to win, dog. It's as simple as that. You draft players for a reason. You draft players to build for the future and to get better long term. They've went against all of those principles over these past 7 years. They was going to miss the playoffs for the second straight year in 23 until they got an infusion of young players mid-season. That's what gave them the boost to make that playoff run. But as soon as they ran to a real team who had the chemistry and the development, they got swept, dog. And it's not going to change no matter what they do. The Hurricane, although I'm going to celebrate like there's no tomorrow, he can retire right now. And if they try to operate in the same mode for Luka Doncic, they're going to get the same results. So I would say someone has to be realistic in throwing the towel and start back to basics. Get back to basics and look at what OKC is doing. Why is Minnesota going to the conference finals for the second straight year? Why is Indiana breaking through the way they have? Why was they able to upset the number 1 seed Cleveland Cavaliers in the playoffs? You look at all these factors, man. It's something that they're doing right. And then maybe humble ourselves a little bit. Humble ourselves and stop playing on the past. We can't use the past. We can't use those 16 championships that they won. Or the 10 championships that they won from 1980 to 2010. No, that's history. The reality is, as I've been saying for the past 5 years, the gig has been up since the bubble, man. The gig has been up since the bubble. Teams have overtaken the Lakers. And to tell you the truth, that third seed that the Lakers clinched this year, it was really based on manipulation of a lot of factors. A lot of teams were dealing with injuries too. A lot of manipulation. But as soon as they faced a real team, dog, they weren't even playing their best basketball. They lost in 5 games. See, at the end of the day, like I said, you can't keep everybody who you draft. We know that. Because it's going to get to a point where, there's only so many roster spots that you can fill. Okay, we get that. Julius Randle should not have been let go the way he had. Brandon Ingram was 21 years old when he was traded. He was 21. Think about that. You look at OKC, the average age of the players who they bringing in was like, starting out, was like about 21, which is really what it should be. That's why, man, everything is the way they built their team up is so seamless that there's really been nothing that has set them back in their growth. There's nothing really set them back. It's been darn near perfect. But that would have been the Lakers. Instead of the bubble in 2020, you'd be looking at a situation where you preparing to roll for a decade. I'd rather give me that any day of the week, where you got 10 years of promise, where you can enjoy real basketball without all this drama. Because that's all. This 7 years have been nothing but talk, hype, smoke and mirrors. That's all this is being, man. To make the fans feel like, well, we back to being relevant. This is the Lakers of old, and it's not. It is not. Now, if you'd have built that young core up and let them develop their chemistry and come of age at the same time, and you start seeing the results, then you could have said, are we truly back? Because that would have been the case, because you brought in your own players. But when you have to rely on all outside players, you're really rolling the dice. You're really rolling the dice, where over half your roster is outside players and low-tier players. You're not finna win. And then the guy that you gave up all this for had 6 championship losses. It's a lose-lose combination. So I just want to drop that, man. That's my take on it. Like I said, the gig has been up for the past 5 years, man. And this ain't about Luka. This ain't, you're not gonna hear me say nothing bad about Luka Doncic. It's just the way that they got him and the reason why they got him and how he was brought to the team. It should be cause for concern. But leave your comments and thoughts. I'd like to hear your opinions. I just want to drop that nugget. I'm so tired of the situation, man. I'm just totally numb to it. Because you sit here, you know, because when they first got Luka, they was like, oh man, they finna make a run to the finals. I'm like, where your big man at? Because historically, ain't no team won no title. Even Golden State doing their championship run, man. They had JaVale McGee or was it Jaja Pachulia and Andrew Bogut. At least they had that. And fans actually believed that they was gonna do something with our legitimate big man. That's why there's so much focus to bring a big man on out. But the problem is, then that would have been an issue if Zubats had not been thrown under the bus. I came across a clip by Colin Cowherd from the 2018 season. And when you look back on it, you know, they say Lonzo Ball was a bust. He was not a bust. He was overhyped because of voices out there saying he going to break all my records and he better than Steph Curry and all this. But if you really look at Lonzo Ball rookie year, Colin Cowherd pointed out during Lonzo's rookie season, his last 20 games before he got hurt, the Lakers were 13-7 with him in the lineup. That's a 65% winning percentage clip over that stretch. 13-7. And if they had not been injured down the stretch, this is the year before they brought the Hurricane to the team, they would have finished with a 500 record, just like OKC did 2 years ago, where they finished with a record of 40-42, and then they took off. We would have finished with a 500 record, especially if we would have played in the Eastern Conference. See, they had all the tools, man. It was all there. But at the end of the day, it's all gone now. But they ain't replaced Lonzo Ball at the point guard spot. They tried to with Kendrick Nunn and Gabe Vincent, who were more shooting guards. And plus, they're not even starters. They backups. Dennis Schroeder was a 6-man. He's a scoring guard. They ain't replaced Lonzo since they traded him. Fundamentally. I'm telling you, man, like, I always envision in my mind, like, what would they have been? Now, fans of the Hurricane say, well, they ain't done nothing. I don't listen to them. I don't even trip out what they say. But my eye test, because I watched all 82 games, I think it would be off the roof. But it is what it is now. But again, leave your comments and thoughts. And until next time, what can I say, people? this has really been a trip, man. It's really been a turmoil watching these past 7 years. But I just want to drop that nugget. Until next time, JB BTB, folks. In the name of the show, it is called Behind the Bench.